You make a decision, and almost immediately, you question it. You replay the conversation. You imagine better options. You ask 3 different people what they would do. Even when you choose something small, a message to send, a job to apply for, a boundary to set, you don't trust yourself. But it doesn't look dramatic from the outside. You function. You show up. You make choices. But inside, there's a quiet instability. Every decision feels temporary, like it can still be reversed, like it's not solid yet. You send a text, then reread it 5 times. You pick a direction, then Google alternatives. You say no, then feel guilty for hours. This doesn't just slow you down. It slowly reshapes your identity. You start seeing yourself as bad at decisions, overthinker, indecisive. But what's really happening is deeper. You don't distrust decisions. You distrust your internal signals. And when that happens, your mind becomes a courtroom. One part presents evidence. Another part cross-examines it. A third part imagines the worst-case scenario. No verdict ever feels final. Psychologically, this pattern often forms when your early instincts were repeatedly corrected, dismissed, or overridden. Don't be dramatic. You're overreacting. That's not what happened. You don't know enough yet. Over time, your brain learns something subtle. Your perception is unreliable. And once that belief forms, every decision feels unsafe. But here's the part most people miss. This isn't weakness. It's adaptation. And to understand it, we have to look at what your brain is trying to protect you from. You're not broken. You're cautious. Your brain doesn't distrust you randomly. It learned to double-check because at some point, that helped you survive socially or emotionally. If your choices were criticized, your brain learned to pre-correct them. If your emotions were dismissed, your brain learned to second-guess them. If mistakes were punished harshly, your brain learned to anticipate them before they happened. This is not indecision. It's threat detection turned inward. And it's powered by something very specific in your nervous system. But before we go there, ask yourself something quietly. When you doubt a decision, what are you actually afraid of? Being wrong? Or being judged for being wrong? That distinction matters more than it seems. Visual, slow-moving waves under gray sky. For psychological mechanism. Your brain is constantly running prediction models. Neuroscience calls this predictive processing. The brain isn't reacting to reality. It's predicting outcomes based on past experiences. Think of it like a GPS system. If you've driven through dangerous neighborhoods before, your GPS will start rerouting automatically, even if the road looks calm now. When your early decisions led to shame, correction, or disapproval, your brain updated its map. Self-generated choices equals potential threat. So now, every time you decide something, the amygdala, your brain's threat detector, activates slightly. Not panic, just uncertainty. That uncertainty sends a signal to the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for reasoning, and says, recalculate. And so you do. And again. And again. This is called error monitoring. The anterior cingulate cortex scans for mistakes. In healthy amounts, it's useful. In overdrive, it creates chronic self-doubt. Here's a simple mental model. Imagine your brain has an internal committee. One voice suggests an action. Another voice checks for danger. A third voice evaluates social consequences. In people who trust themselves, the danger-checking voice speaks, then quiets. In you, it keeps the microphone, because historically, it had a point. But here's the quiet cost. When you outsource your internal authority to endless checking, your sense of self becomes unstable. And self-trust is not built by being right. It's built by tolerating being wrong. That's the shift. Now let's talk about how to rebuild that stability. Not with affirmations, but with rewiring. 1. Shrink the decision exposure. What to do? Start making low-stakes decisions quickly and intentionally. What to eat, what route to take, what to wear, and do not revisit them. Why it works? This reduces amygdala activation through exposure. Your brain learns, decision made, nothing catastrophic happened. Repeated safe exposure rewires threat predictions. Real-life example. You choose a restaurant without checking reviews for 20 minutes. You eat. It's fine. Your brain updates its map slightly. Tiny decisions retrain the nervous system. 2. Separate outcome from identity. What to do? After a decision, instead of asking was I right, ask, what did I learn? Why it works. This shifts activity from threat monitoring circuits to learning circuits. The brain encodes experience as data instead of danger. Psychologically, this builds a growth-based self-concept rather than a fragile one. Real-life example. You apply for a role and don't get it. Instead of, I misjudged, you ask, what feedback can refine my next attempt? Now the decision wasn't a verdict on you. It was information. That reframing lowers shame-based memory encoding. 3. Limit external referendums. What to do? Before asking someone for advice, pause and write what you already think you want. Then ask for perspective, not permission. Why it works. Chronic advice seeking weakens internal confidence loops. When you decide first, you strengthen neural pathways associated with self-generated authority. Real-life example. Before texting a friend about whether to confront someone, write your intended message first. Then ask, how does this sound? Not, what should I say? Subtle shift. Massive difference in identity. 4. Practice decision finality. What to do? Set a no revisiting rule for certain choices unless new data appears. Why it works. Rumination strengthens neural pathways of doubt. Interrupting rumination weakens them. This is behavioral inhibition training, teaching the brain that rechecking isn't necessary. Real-life example. You send an email. You do not reopen it unless a response arrives. The urge will spike, then fade. Each time you resist, you strengthen cognitive control networks. 5. Track survival evidence. What to do? Keep a small log of decisions that turned out okay, especially the ones you doubted. Why it works. The brain has a negativity bias. It stores mistakes more vividly than successes. Consciously tracking safe outcomes recalibrates memory weighting. Real-life example. You notice that 8 out of 10 decisions you obsessed over ended up neutral or positive. Your brain slowly updates its threat model. And this is how trust is rebuilt. Not by certainty, but by data. Here's the simple model to remember. Your brain is a prediction machine. It predicts danger based on old maps. When you doubt yourself, it's not because you're incapable. It's because your internal GPS still thinks you're driving through risk. Self-trust grows when you update the map. Small decisions. Reduced rumination. Learning over judging. You don't need to become fearless. You just need enough repeated evidence that you can survive your own choices. Visual. Person walking slowly down a quiet road at dusk. And something subtle happens when you do this. The internal committee quiets. The danger-checking voice doesn't disappear. It just stops dominating. You begin to feel something unfamiliar. Stability. You will still make imperfect decisions. That's not the point. The point is this. A decision is not a test of your worth. It's a direction. And directions can be adjusted. The more you allow yourself to move, even imperfectly, the more your nervous system learns. I can handle this. And maybe the goal was never to be certain. Maybe it was to be steady. So next time you make a choice, notice the doubt. But don't automatically obey it. You're not trying to silence your brain. You're teaching it a new map. And maps change. Slowly. With every step you take.